The Cherokee once had to deal with a witch, and this witch appeared in the form of an elderly woman. She wore a hooded cloak, and what she would do is keep one hand concealed in that cloak. And she'd hobble along the paths, and she'd look down at the waterway, watching the children gathering water with their parents or picking crops. And she'd find a child that had wandered off, and she'd call out to the child, little girl, come to Granny. You have briars in your hair. Let Granny help you before Mother becomes upset." Or, little boy, come to Granny. Your clothes are filthy. Let Granny help you before Father punishes you." And then she'd take the child by the hand and wander off into the woods. And then she'd find a location, a clearing, and she would sit down, have the child lay its head on her lap, and then she'd begin to brush the child's hair and sing to the child in a beautiful and angelic voice until the child drifted off to sleep. And then she'd make sure the child was asleep by bending down and kissing the child on the cheek. If the child was indeed asleep, well, then she would smile with these razor-sharp pointed teeth. She'd pull that hand out from beneath her cloak where she had one big, long, bony finger in the shape of a spear, and she would insert it into the neck of the child, killing the child, and then she would eat the child, especially the liver. Now, this didn't go over real well in the village. In fact, the chieftain, he places a curfew on the village, and then he sends out his warriors to search for her, and they encounter her, and they give chase, and she outruns his two fastest warriors. So this ain't no ordinary grandma. So he orders everybody back to the village, and then he has his warriors go out and they dig these pits, and in the bottom of these deep pits they put these spears sticking straight up, and they cover them with limbs and leaves and debris, and they're hoping she will come along, fall into one of those pits, and impale herself. One evening they see her and they give chase, and she does indeed fall into one of those pits. One of those warriors runs up to the edge, turns his back to the pit, and he claims the victory. He is the first one there, and he has killed the witch. But he didn't bother to look into the pit. And she jumps up, she grabs him by the ankle and snatches him down there with her, and she makes quick, bloody work of him. The other warriors are horrified. They look over in the pit, and they realize she has snapped off all those spears. They have not penetrated or impaled her body. And now she's acting like a wild animal, jumping up, hissing, and clawing at them. They begin firing their arrows down in there, and they're bouncing off. So they look to the chieftain for guidance, and the chieftain really doesn't know what to do, so he begins to pray and ask for divine intervention. While he's praying, a little sparrow flies down out of a tree and lands on his shoulder. "Go away, sparrow, I have no time for you." The sparrow flies up into the air and lands on his other shoulder. "Go away, sparrow, I have no time for you. Can't you see we're fighting a witch?" The third time, the sparrow lands on his head, grabs a beak full of hair, and snatches it and flies away. Ow! Now it lands back on his shoulder and it's got his attention. And this time he listens to the sparrow, and he realizes the sparrow is speaking to him in his native tongue. He understands every single word the sparrow is saying. And she tells him to aim for the witch's wrist. That is where her heart is. The wrist beneath the spear. He takes aim himself and he fires, and it penetrates her wrist. And she lets out a blood-curdling scream. She bursts into a ball of flame and disintegrates into ash. And that is the end of the witch named Spearfinger. And this is where the Cherokee tell us we get that little saying, "A little birdie told me."